Hi, I'm James Johnson, founder and CEO coach. Welcome to Peer Effect, the podcast where your peers will tell you how to 10x your business. We've had lots of scaling founders on the show, often VC backed, so I thought it'd be great to hear from the other side. What are the VCs thinking? My guest today, Darcy Martin, is head of platform at Outward VC. She's been there for 6 years, which is almost from the beginning, so she's seen it all. They've just raised and closed their second fund. This is the episode for you if you want to learn about how to maximize your investors and get some big wins from a few conversations. Let's get to it. So, Darcy, welcome to the Peer Effect podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So, hear that you're a bit of a Pilates expert. Tell me a bit more about that.
I don't know if I'm an expert, but I've done my fair share of classes, but I actually grew up doing it. So my mom is an instructor. So since the age of 13, I've kind of been doing Pilates and really love the exercise form, love the science behind it. I think it is so good for the body. It's now become quite a trend. With many celebrities doing it. But yeah, something that I love to do. So I think you're bringing it up because it would be my dream one day to have my own studio.
And you're saying like somewhere between like sort of the sort of specialty and sort of pre and postnatal, maybe with your current experiences.
Well, yeah, since I've become pregnant, first pregnancy, I've actually just learned so much about the female body that I had no idea about, and how, as you know, women, we could be doing so much more to prepare ourselves in general for life and pregnancy, and what an impact that can have on your day-to-day well-being going forward. So it's something I found really interesting learning about.
Yeah, I think it's amazing how you can do something for so long and then still discover a whole new range of use cases.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah.
So now, sort of, apart from being short to be a mum, you are head of platform. What brought you into that? What's your origin story?
So lots of people ask me this, and it's very random. So I guess I've always been guided and drawn to things that I've found interesting or been passionate about. So when I left school, for me, that was art history. So I went to study history of art at university. Following that, I went into branding and advertising, but quickly realized that I wanted to um, almost like diversify my options, because I didn't want to niche myself in a certain area so young and so early on in my career. So I ended up applying for a graduate rotation program at a bank, hoping that I would find something creative there with the benefit of getting a better pay. And through that experience, I came to meet Outward VC, because the bank that I was working for was a founding LP in the fund. And that's when I saw the intersection of financial services with this very exciting, creative, and entrepreneurial world of venture capital, which I didn't actually really know anything about prior to starting that grad rotation program. And luckily, I had the chance to work with the Outward team for 3 months as part of that rotation program. And then I ended up convincing the team that I should stay. So 3 months turned into a 6 month rotation, 6 months turned into 9 months, and now we're more than 6 years later. But really, starting at the grassroots level meant that I almost tried out every role in the fund. I was still figuring out like what I was good at, what I should do in my career. So I didn't even really know that platform existed. And at that time, it was still being fleshed out and developed, I think, as a role in the industry, particularly in the UK and Europe. So I've had a good broad exposure to how the fund operates, from the investment team to the operations, investor relations, and that experience and having that very broad view over the fund, it has been wrapped up into one role, which for me is called platform. And I think it means something different at Outward than it does at any other fund. But that's kind of how my journey into platform evolved.
Yeah, it definitely feels like people come to platform with bringing some very sort of different specialisms with them. I love how you've come into it. So, well, you spent 6 years in the same place and kind of like pieced the role together yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, I think the smaller and younger the fund. So for context, when I joined Outward, we were 2 weeks away from the first close of the first fund. So much in the team and the fund still had to be built. So it was a really amazing opportunity to come in when a lot of it was a blank slate. I think the more established the fund, the larger the fund, the the bigger the team. They get different specialties, whether it's like you're coming in for hiring or you're coming in for events. But the smaller the fund and the less established, the more hats you have to wear. And I think that really plays to my strengths.
Well, I think what's really interesting for us of this is obviously we talked to founders about how you can scale and sort of actionable insights. What is sort of the main takeaway that you think you've had that you would share with founders, having had this 6 years rotating around a fund?
So I would say, having interacted with many different co-investors, and by interacted, we love to collaborate with other funds at Outward, and we truly believe that everyone comes around the table can bring something different. We can't be everything to all of our founders. There are some things that we really focus on and pride ourselves on being really good at. So I would say to founders is that with capital comes a lot more. There's knowledge, expertise, network. Like each fund essentially has their hook. If they didn't, I don't think they would have been able to raise capital from their LPs. So it's really about finding out what is that additional thing that those funds can bring to the table to help your business, and how can you make sure that you squeeze all the juice out of that in order to advance your business, broaden your networks, get through the doors to customers, etc. So really understanding who's around your cap table and what they can do for you, and making sure you get the most out of it.
So maybe that can be tied to this episode, squeezing the juice. Like it feels maybe for founders when they're in that fundraising stage, it's just about can they raise the money. Like it's just like, oh, people are saying yes, but it sounds like we're suggesting is to look beyond just the money and see what is the additional benefit a VC would bring. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all funding rounds are different, right? Like some founders are lucky enough to have lots of competing offers on the table where they can weigh up their options. Others, it might not be the case that they've got competing offers, and they might just have to take the capital that's being offered from the one fund. But I would still urge all founders to ask the funding partner, the VC, the family office, whatever it may be, what they offer to their founders, like what they bring to the table, what's their value add beyond capital. So really understanding that. Is it that they have focused networks? Is it that they have a specific skill set? Is it that they're a stage focused investor? So they focus, and like, this is what Outward does, we focus solely on the early stage. So for us, we know how to support founders at that pre-seed stage up to Series A, really dedicated support on that scaling journey. Whereas another fund, it might be an opportunity bet, they're a later stage fund and they're coming in purely for optionality. You have to be comfortable with what benefit you're getting from that investor. And I would say over and beyond asking the VC, it's more important to also speak to their portfolio founders, to do references, to understand what they've gained from the fund. Does it align with what the fund has essentially sold them as well?
So if the founders listening, it feels, am I brave enough to ask my potential investor if I can reference, because essentially it's like a reference checking your investors. How do you think a sort of a fund would respond to some saying, oh, could I speak to some other founders in your portfolio? And is this something you do sort of explicitly, or you're kind of just reach out to founders in the portfolio?
Look, as a fund, our approach is that we tend to get asked this question. I think founders tend to be savvy enough that they do ask. If they don't ask, it's almost a bit of a flag. We want our founders to um, place a lot of value on their equity, and giving that away, they need to fully understand who they're essentially getting into bed with. So it's a really positive sign when founders are pushing back, they're asking questions, and they're trying to extract as much support and help that they can. So it's a positive thing. It shouldn't be seen as a might throw the round. Definitely not. So that's something I would say. And for us as a fund, you can talk a lot about what you bring to the table, but really the best way that we think to demonstrate that to founders is we just say, go and speak to our portfolio, and they can tell you.
And so if you were a founder putting together like your dream sort of round, how many VCs then would you include? It sounds like if each VC is bringing their own specialism, what are the key specialisms that you think would be nice to have in a round?
That's a good question. So, look, I think you need an anchor in the round, and that's someone who's going to lead the round, set the terms, and essentially galvanize the round. So that's really important. And our advice to founders when they're raising follow-on capital is really to focus the initial conversations around who is that lead investor going to be, because that's the most important way to focus your fundraising journey, because then you can think about who slots in around you after that lead is in. You don't want too many voices around the table, because sometimes that can not necessarily be very constructive. I would also say that angel investors can be extremely helpful in terms of advice. Maybe they've had a history in the industry that you're looking to crack. They might have their own networks and connections. So it's a combination of different skill sets around the table. But I would definitely say something to think of is the lead investor that you're taking in, are they dedicated to the stage that you're at? And then, are their networks aligned to your potential customers? Like, can they help you with those customers? But really, it just depends on like what your weaknesses are as a founder or as a company, and where you need the most support. The other thing I would say is I would look at the underlying portfolio and see, are there any synergies between your company and the underlying portfolio companies? Because if there are, it probably means that you might get access to their underlying customers. You might be able to partner with those underlying portfolio companies. Or it even demonstrates that fund has had experience seeing those companies scale, and will be able to then take the value from seeing the journey of those businesses, and bring that knowledge into the room with you and around the table. So in terms of that point, are they specialist in your area? That's something to consider as well. If it's a generalist fund, that's also fine, but pushing them on what value they bring as a generalist is really important. So maybe getting a mix of specialists in terms of stage, in terms of sector, and some influential angels around the table would be a good mix, I'd say.
So like, you have these specialist funds. What would a generalist fund bring to the table then?
Well, generalist funds can bring a really good high caliber brand. There's lots of generalists in the market that have got fantastic recognition in the market, and that can be really helpful on many fronts in terms of hiring talent, getting on follow-on funding. So that's something to note. And then what else can they bring to the table? It also just depends how large their funds are. So some of them will have specialist teams where they can support you on hiring and talent, go-to-market strategy, etc. There's a number of generalist funds in the market that have dedicated platform teams to support the portfolio. It really just depends.
So it really feels that you can get a lot from VCs that you wouldn't necessarily think? It sounds like you get sort of sector expertise, you can get sort of functional expertise in terms of go-to-market, hiring, etc. You really can shore up quite a lot of weaknesses by carefully choosing the VCs that you speak to or bring on board.
Well, absolutely. And maybe something that founders don't really think about is that VCs also have to raise their own funds. We have to go through our own fundraising rounds, if you will. So, and it's not easy to get capital as a venture capital fund. There's a lot of competition in the market. Um, and a lot of the capital going into VC is concentrated to, tier one funds or larger funds. So every single VC that has raised capital has had to demonstrate, why they have some kind of unique inside background experience to find the best companies in the area that they're specializing in. And often that plays into the value add that they bring to portfolio companies. Otherwise, I don't think those funds would get funding.
Right. So actually, and they're gonna be the same. Like what they're saying to founders as their sort of value add is going to match what they're saying to the LPs.
I'd like to think so, yeah.
So there's kind of there's a bit of survival of the fittest going on among VCs then as well. Like in the same way with startups, you've got a limited investment pool which you're trying to win a share of.
Absolutely. And in this current market, it's becoming harder and harder for funds, especially emerging managers and younger funds, to raise successor funds.
So it's not just about performance, is what you're saying. It's not just going like we have performed and done X and Y. It's saying this is our performance and you've got to explain why that performance is there.
I mean, don't get me wrong, performance is extremely important, but often the funds that perform well, it goes hand in hand with the value that they bring, their unique insight, their sector specialism and expertise. So the funds that are performing exceptionally well are probably bringing a lot to the table for their portfolio companies in terms of sharing knowledge, and supporting them through, very difficult scaling journeys.
Because it's very interesting for VCs how in many ways they're kind of startups and scale ups themselves. I mean, you have limited resources because you have a certain capped income. You've got to try and do quite a lot with quite a little. So you've kind of got to pick your lane, don't you? To sort of figure out what you're going to really specialize in, and then focus your team and your resources on those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think particularly in Outward's case, and personally, from my own career perspective, a lot of what I've learned to do over the past kind of 3 years is what we should definitely be saying no to, and what we hold our hands up and say, that's not our area of expertise. I can help you find someone that can help you with that. But it's about knowing like what your lane is, where you bring the value and what you should spend your time on, but also knowing like what you don't do and what you can't do for founders. Or
so there's almost like a VC version of product market fit.
no, absolutely.
And how then? So you said that there are actually many hidden benefits of a VC. So you've got sort of the direct expertise they bring, but potentially this portfolio ecosystem partnerships of sharing on just, I don't know, founder to founder support, or maybe even sharing clients. Or how do you go about sort of facilitating that?
So a big part of my role and the way that I think about it is like I'm a connector. So I will be thinking about various different stakeholders within our ecosystem. And I feel like it's the way that my mind works. It kind of pings when I see a connection that should be made. So I have the benefit of speaking to our limited partners. Many of them have invested in our fund because they're interested in fintech and they're interested in the early stage. They have a background in financial services world, therefore they have some kind of access. So that's one thing. Then I speak to our founders, understand who they're selling to, what some of their scaling issues have been. Maybe they've worked with a great provider. And then it just so happens that you'll have a conversation with a founder and they might be looking for support and go to market. And, I just had a conversation with an LP the other day, and it's about connecting the dots between the various people in the ecosystem. But for a founder, I think you can be really proactive about it. And I've seen this done well with some of our own founders where they're asking, like, can you provide me a list of your LPs that could be relevant to my specific industry, for example? This is our target client list. Who can you introduce me to that's in your network? Um, Another example that came up last week was a very early stage founder in our fund is looking to, um, kind of upskill themselves on their go-to-market. So they had a look. They asked us, are there any portfolio companies that you would recommend speaking to? And we can look to some of our later stage companies at Series B. And I just reached out to their, head of sales and asked them, would they be open to chatting with some of our earlier stage founders on their process and go to market. And the value exchange is there. And often I believe that if you help someone, they'll, return the favor one day. So a lot of our the leadership in our portfolio and our founders are willing to help because we've made a connection in the past. So it's almost kind of like they're giving back.
But it sounds like there's some stuff that you can do as the fund, and there's quite a lot that founders can be proactive in doing themselves.
I think it's a two-way street. So I think you would expect the fund to be thinking about their portfolio, but there's so much going on. There's so many companies. If you're more pushy about it and persistent and you're making it really obvious where you need help and support, you're essentially bringing those issues top of mind to the people that can help you. And that's when the best connections get made because you're thinking about it. If you kind of are just expecting that, oh, when Outward speaks with a relevant company, they might just immediately think of me. Perhaps that you might miss that. But if you make it really implicit, hey, I'm looking to form connections with XYB customers in this space, then it's top of mind and the introduction is more likely to come.
So it feels like there's two real approaches you can take with your VC then here. One of which is kind of almost keep your head down. It's kind of like treat them as someone's put money in and you don't want to raise too much attention. Like you want to get on doing your thing. Or you can treat them like a real partner and go, okay, there's lots of value I can get from this. I want to stay top of mind. I want to be very much on the front foot. I want to be asking questions. And it feels like that approach, which might go against some founders' instinct for control, actually will pay huge dividends.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the job of the fund, and we say this, we get out the way when we're not, needed. So it's really important to know when to just let the founder build and put their heads down. But equally, if you can get an introduction to a customer or support from a fellow portfolio company or an LP that could benefit your business, why would you not ask for that?
Because you've been doing this, you said, for 6 years now. Do you see a variety in behaviour from founders in terms of how engaged they are and how well they squeeze the juice from from you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely do. Some founders are just different. And I've seen it work really well and we have one founder in particular that's really proactive about asking for things, and I love it because it helps me learn more about their business and what they need, and what one early stage founder might be asking for could be relevant to the rest of our portfolio. So often they might ask for something and I'll see, okay, this could also actually be relevant to 3 other companies in our portfolio. I'll take that learning and benefit and then pass it on to the rest of the companies. So it's not just about helping one company. It's about thinking broadly across the portfolio. But I really love it when founders ask for things and when they bring their problems to the surface, because it helps me learn more about the companies, and then I can help more of our founders with that insight and knowledge.
So actually, it's like let's say you have 100 companies in the portfolio. It's not like the case everyone gets 1% of your attention. It's probably people are more proactive, get more of it, and other people sort of benefit by almost the stuff you're learning. But if you really want to maximize resident VC, you do want to be having conversations with the head of platform, with the partners as well, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just depends how the fund is set up. Like in the case of Outward, we will always have two of the investment team that are really close with the founders, and they're often the team that source the investment, and they build the relationship with the founder from the start, which is really important because the founder's not going to ask for help or share when something difficult is happening in the business, there's founder conflict, etc., if they don't have a trusting relationship with the investor. So you have to build trust first. Um, and through that relationship, I can learn from the investment team what's happening in the company, what they need help with. So it's not sometimes that I'm always interfacing with the founder. I might be learning about it through my team. So that's one thing in terms of understanding what's happening at the company.
I think the question I was going to follow on with was then you're being involved sometimes through the partner, sometimes directly from the founder once that relationship's built. I'm
Mm.
curious, during the sort of the potential investment stage, do partners, before they make decisions on potential investments, would they ever ask the question to platform, is this a business we can support?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the team would also be demonstrating before investment, this is how we can support. We see these synergies across our portfolio, across our LPs, um, and this is what we could add to your company. So sometimes there's also like a bit of a reverse pitch going on, where VCs are also demonstrating what they can bring to the table. And I just picked up where I had lost my thought previously in terms of how you allocate time to each portfolio company. It really just depends. It's like peaks and troughs. Like sometimes companies, things are going well, they have heads are down, they're building, scaling, and it's going well. And at that stage, we are getting out of the way. Other times, like all early stage companies and scaling companies, things go wrong, and then more time is dedicated to those businesses. So it really just it changes. It's not like we're keeping score of how much time we've spent on each company and making sure it's equal. It's just dependent what's happening in those companies.
But it's interesting that positioning sounds like sort of more time is spent in the company when it's not working. But I wonder, it sounds like there's lots of benefits even when it is working in terms of more client connections, more like. So is it a case of the sort of interventions when it's not working, or is it about sort of accelerating things when they're going well as well?
It's both. I think some VCs are really strict about, you know, um, being really careful about how they're spending their time with companies where things aren't going well. Um, I don't think that's the philosophy at Outward. Um, and in terms of when it is going well, often we might be on the phone with founders hashing out strategy, and this is not just me, it's the investment team. So using your board or investors as like a sparring partner for how they might advance a contract or close a deal with a potential big customer. It just really depends what the founder needs.
And so just out of curiosity, let's say there's four other VCs in supporting one of your portfolio. Would you connect with the other heads of platform and the sort of might you go, okay, well, this is a specialism that you're asking for go to market as an example might not be our thing. However, I know that this VC are really good at go to market. Suggest speak to them. How aware would you be of the other sort of specialisms in other investors?
I think that the platform ecosystem in Europe and the UK is very collaborative. It's a brilliant ecosystem, and everyone is so open to sharing whether you need support getting access to a specific company where you're looking for a partnership for your portfolio companies, or it might just be recommendations on venues for a specific event. Like, people are very willing to share. In terms of taking the approach of looking at our co-investors and then looking at the platform team and understanding what our portfolio companies are getting from that co-investor and how that aligns to what we bring, that's a really good idea. I haven't done that before. Maybe it's something to think about going forward.
Oh, you're welcome. So for if there was one thing that you think founders should do right now, they've got investors, after listening to this episode, what's one thing you think they should go and do with their existing investors?
Me, in general, my motto in life is, or maybe not in life, but something I truly believe in is, if you don't ask, you don't get. So, you know, making sure that you're making your needs well known, and what you're looking to get out of the next kind of 6 to 12 months, and seeing how your investors can help you, and just bringing that to their attention and making it top of mind. I would be surprised if you didn't get one introduction that could be useful.
Amazing.
At least one.
Which could be, I mean, it could be a new client worth millions. It could lead to a key hire. It could lead to...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one example is I met with a founder in our portfolio last year, just sat down to catch up, realized that they're selling into a similar customer as another portfolio company, connected those two founders together, and today they're doing a joint partnership. And for the initial company that I met with, it's one of their first enterprise clients in the US.
Amazing. Which presumably unlocks a whole, the next stage of their business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important, and that might not have happened had we not had that conversation, had they not been open to sharing and meeting, and just meeting more of the team from the fund if you can.
Okay, so make a list of your it's almost time for Christmas, like your Christmas list. take it to your fund and say, this is what would be really helpful for me in the next 6 to 12 months.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Well, Darcy, thank you so much for sharing. This has been fascinating insight into how VCs work.
Thanks, James.
Such a great episode today with Darcy. I really love the idea of going with your Christmas list to your investors and seeing what they could make happen, either themselves, through their LPs, or the other portfolio companies. We'll see you next Wednesday for another founder episode, or Monday for the Peer Effect Postbag with Freddie. As ever, if any questions, just email us at hello@peer-effect.com or reach out on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening and happy scaling.